This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Grow My Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your earbuds with us over an extended period of time. We really appreciate our long-term listeners and you sharing your reviews and ratings on iTunes and Stitcher. We really appreciate that. Today, we have a guest with us who is all about video. We've got Ben Amos from Engage Video Marketing. Now, you want to stick around to the end of this. I know there's a fantastic resource that will be available for you. Ben, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, very well, Jack. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Mate, this is going to be a lot of fun. So you are a video guru. You run Engage Video Marketing. You've got Innovate Media up on the Sunshine Coast, clients all over the place. But who is Ben Amos? What's your backstory? How did you get corrupted into video? What's your background, mate?
Corrupted into video. It's an interesting space to play. I'm sure your listeners will understand the power of video, which we'll get into today. But look, my background has been pretty squarely in video for a while. Basically, I went through university and became a high school teacher of film and media. So I taught in secondary schools for a number of years. And enjoyed the ability to transfer my passion of video and that medium of communication to students. But after not too long, I didn't really see that as a future for me. So I basically stepped out and started my own video production business. Right. The short story is I started shooting weddings. First of all, weddings are a big industry here on the Sunshine Coast, and I was able to produce wedding films while I was still teaching full time. And before too long, the wedding business picked up enough that I was able to somewhat confidently, leave my full-time teaching position and start making videos full-time. And after a number of years of wedding video production, I basically drew a line in the sand and said, I don't want to be working weekends. We had a small family or a young family, and I wanted to be, creating a business that fitted me. And so I moved very deliberately into producing videos for businesses and just went from there. So now the agency up here on the Sunshine Coast, Innovate Media, we 100% produce online video content with a strategy for businesses large and small across predominantly Queensland, also around Australia.
We won't hold the Queenslander thing against you, mate. We'll move on. We won't mention State of Origin 2018, or should we?
No, we won't. We'll move on.
Right, got it. I'm a Blues fan for those listening along. That's rugby league. There's a lot of Southern State listeners here who've got no clue what this rugby league thing is. But we'll forgive them. Okay, so there's weddings, and now it's doing videos for all sorts of companies, large and small. But I know you're big on the strategy. So we're going to get into some nuts and bolts mechanics of video production. But let's talk about strategy and what mistakes do you see businesses make when it comes to thinking about the strategy of video?
Yeah, Jack, it's a good question. And behind this question is the reason why we've pivoted the agency into now what I call what we do, an online video strategy agency. Right, and video production is how we deliver what we do. So, and that's been a deliberate shift in our business over the last number of years, because what I was seeing was we were producing video content for our clients. They were paying good money for it. They were sure. Stoked with the outcome. We were getting paid. Everyone was patting themselves on the back. The clients would have a great video, but they didn't have a clue what to do with it. So what we would see in countless examples 5-6 years ago when we were delivering these videos to our clients is they were undoubtedly just sticking it on YouTube, maybe emailing it to a few people, family and friends. Yeah. And we would check back on the video where they'd stuck it up on YouTube 6 months later. And in one particular instance where a client had paid $5,000 for a particular video, they had amassed a huge 30 views on their video on YouTube. And YouTube was the only place where they'd actually put it. So clearly, I think anyone can see that there was very little return on that investment. Now, the client wasn't feeling unhappy about the content that they'd produced. They'd got what they had paid for, but they had no idea what to do with it. And so they hadn't been approaching it strategically in the first place. And as a provider of a solution, we hadn't actually, provided them the right solution. We'd just given them what we thought they wanted was a video. So that kind of, I guess, launched us onto the path of really understanding what it means to deliver effective video strategy and how we can implement that for our clients. And that's where the conversation starts now. It's not about what video do you want us to make, but instead, what do you want to achieve in your business? What needle do you want to move? You know, what needs to be affected within your business or organization, or the way you're communicating with your ideal customers.
Yeah.
And if video is the right way to do that, then let's define the creative and technical approach to make that happen, and then implement the video in the right way on the right platforms to actually get those intended results. And that's the core of what strategic online video is all about.
Okay, interesting. So when we're talking about video strategy, what are there any pillars that we should think about, and how can video really play a part in our overall business objectives and business strategy?
I would say it all comes down to, when you're thinking about approaching video strategically for your business, is you need to first of all understand who it is you're talking to. So I've basically kind of mapped it around 7 elements to an effective online video strategy. And I'll run through those 7 elements for you quite quickly, because we can go deep into each of them, but we won't in this podcast. But element number 1 is audience. It's got to start with who you're talking to. Who do you want to reach in your business and move them to take a desired action, which will result in your business growth, right? So who are your customers? When you know your audience, then from there, we move to the second element, which is content. Because once we know your audience, you know what they want to know about. You can really identify and start to map out what your potential content is going to be. From there, we need to understand the goals. So that comes back to, you know, what is your business objective from any piece of content? So for goals, we're basically talking about whether it be brand awareness goals. So, you know, reaching cold traffic who've never heard about you before, getting them to buy in before you ask them to buy from you.
Sure.
Or maybe the goal is more at the conversion end of the journey. So it's more about making that sale or getting people across the line or to actually buy from you. So, and there's a journey through there between that awareness and conversion, which we could explore as well. But when you understand what the goal is, what you want to achieve with your business, and you understand what the content is, and you know who you're talking to, we move then to the 4th element, which is, now that you've created the video, what are you actually going to do with it? So 4th element is distribution. So, and this is actually an increasingly complex element to video strategy, which is, where are you actually going to stick the video? And the number of platforms that you can potentially use as your distribution channel for your videos exploding every year. And that leads to overwhelm. So basically most people just end up sticking it on YouTube, for example, or maybe uploading it, the same version from YouTube, to their Facebook channel or something, Facebook page or something like that. So distribution is the next one, which you need to understand in your strategy. The next element then is optimization. Now, optimization scares the pants off a lot of people. The idea of search engine optimization and SEO, which is potentially a very complex subject and surrounded by a lot of connotations, I think. But at its heart, I talk about optimization as being the things that you do around your video content online in order to optimize it for both the audiences and the algorithms. So when you think about, you know, what can you do to get the right audiences to actually click on your video? And then what can you do to encourage the algorithms or those computer programs behind those different platforms to show your video to the right people? So that's optimization. The next element, or the 6th element, is metrics. So if we understand the data that we can see behind our videos, or the metrics or the analytics, then we understand which metrics actually matter. Because I think if anyone's like dove into the back of their YouTube channel and had a look at YouTube analytics, for example, there's so much data there. It's kind of like, wow, I can look at like where people have come from. I can look at number of views. I can look at retention or how long people have watched for. So because I've got so much data available to me, I'm actually not going to look at any of it very often.
Because analysis paralysis, isn't it?
Absolutely. So when you're approaching it strategically through those previous 5 elements, when you get to the 6th element of metrics, you know which metrics matter. You know which ones you need to look at, to pay attention to. And then the 7th element is an interesting one, because I call the seventh element of an effective video strategy production. And that's when you actually produce the content. So that's where you make decisions around, okay, is it going to be a DIY iPhone kind of a project, or am I going to, put a significant budget behind this and go to a professional video production company, or am I going to do it as a live Facebook show on a weekly basis? Whatever the production decisions are that you make really should be the last decision you make. All of those other 6 elements should be discussed and mapped out first in an effective strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's super useful. So let's come back to the start. I mean, if we stop the podcast there, that's incredible value. I'm sure listeners have been blown away by thinking through those steps. Let's talk a little bit about the strategic difference between awareness branding content versus the conversion content. What are some of the distinct differences, and how do we be strategic around creating awareness versus conversion content?
Yeah, and this is a really interesting thing to dive into, because when we're talking about that element of the goal that we talked about before, really what we want to do is to align the goal with that audience and where they are on that journey to buy from us. So in its simplest forms, whether you understand the concept of a customer funnel or a customer journey marketing funnel type approach, you've kind of got the first point of contact potentially for a customer being that awareness stage. And this is when you identify that the customer or potential customer, they're becoming aware of a need that will eventually lead them to buy from you. And at that stage of their journey, we need to recognize that they're connected on an emotional level. So there's things that's keeping them up at night. There's either physical pains or mental pains or things that are happening within their own world that is making them feel unease, and when you identify what that pain is, I guess, it may not be a physical pain. It may just be more a frustration or whatever it is. But when you identify what that is, you need to understand that that's how you need to connect to people at that awareness stage. So when we talk about that first stage of the customer journey, we need to be connecting on an emotional level. I said it before, getting people to buy in before you ask them to buy. And then as they move further down the funnel, now they're at a stage which I call basically, they're in the consideration phase, So at this phase, they're now aware that they have a need and they're considering purchasing something or taking an action that will help them with that need. So when you're in this consideration phase, really what they're after is primarily education. They want information. This is when they're actively Google searching things, trying to find answers to their problems. So I talk about the goal here of social engagement. So when we talk about content in this center goal here, in the center of the customer funnel, really what we want is to be connecting with people on a social level, providing education, information, or inspiration to people, positioning us as experts, and I guess providing helpful content to people. If we can provide helpful content to people when they're in this consideration phase, then who are they going to move further down the funnel with? Who are they going to engage with further? And of course, it's going to be us. So we've kind of got them to buy in at the beginning. So they kind of sat up and paid attention, and now they think that we're potentially a good fit for them. Now we've provided masses of value. Now they know that we're a good fit for them. So then we get to the pointy end of the funnel, or to conversion. And that's when, from a content perspective, we want to be addressing the rational decision that they're going to make. The reality of human beings is that we buy with emotion and we justify that decision with rational logic later. So the journey starts at the emotional end, but it does become a rational decision of, am I going to part with my cold hard cash? And this is where, from a content perspective, the videos we need to create at the conversion end need to be addressing those potential sticking points or those rational things that's going to prevent them from buying from you. So it may be you may be creating videos here which are more about how the service is delivered so that people feel like, okay, I feel confident and trust in the approach that I'm going to go through now. Or
Sure.
maybe it's testimonial type videos, which is more showing other people that have had a success with that particular product or service. Or maybe it's just, behind the scenes, lifting up the curtain a bit and showing people, if you do buy or you do become a client or customer of ours, this is the kind of thing you're going to do or see or experience. That kind of thing can be really great at converting people and getting them across the line. So the kinds of video you create at that pointy on that conversion end of the funnel, being very rational, is very different to the kinds of videos you create at the awareness end, which are more around emotional or storytelling based content.
Yeah, okay.
Does that help?
So, yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure listeners would can really resonate with that. And if we were to make an example of this or put it in the context for health clinic owners, and I think it's important also to note, listeners, as we talk about some more businessy terms of leads and prospects and funnels and conversions, we are talking about people and humans here on their health journey. So let's keep that in mind. And so an example might be, at the awareness stage, we're creating videos that are telling stories around people who have been in pain but have potentially made it through, or the impact that an injury might have on someone, the impact that an impediment might have on a child with speech or learning difficulties. In the middle there, around consideration, is answering some of those questions that they're probably Googling. We're positioning ourselves as the authority and expert. We just had Marcus Sheridan on the podcast, who's an absolute guru on content, and he spoke about the principle of they ask, you answer, and really creating great videos that answer Google questions. And at the end, that conversion type video would be something where you're introducing your practitioners, or that what to expect when you attend an assessment. That's the type of video that we're talking about. Here's an insight into our clinic and the journey that patients go on. Is that a fair assumption in terms of examples?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And there's many ways that you can, I guess, massage those content ideas around those goals. And you can be quite creative with that, or you can be, relatively straightforward as well. But, I think you've painted a beautiful picture there of that, what I call the full funnel video strategy, where you're thinking about video across that full funnel from awareness through to conversion. Interestingly, actually, there's one more stage in my full funnel approach, which is what happens after they buy. And this is for what I call the goal of delight, or how you use video to address the advocates of your potential brand, product, or service. And I think it's important to recognize that the journey doesn't end when they buy from you. I mean, yes, the marketing journey ends, but now becomes the advocacy journey. So using video as a way to provide delightful experiences for clients. Maybe it's a thank you. Maybe it's a personalized video using an app like Bonjoro, which you may have talked about on this
I'm a
podcast before.
Bonjoro, absolutely.
So when you think about how you can use video to personalize and humanize the customer onboarding, the client onboarding, or the client experience just with your organization, then that can be super effective in driving new leads into the top of the funnel.
Yeah, I love it, Ben. And inside the Clinic Mastery Business Academy, we train our members on how to use video and other mediums to make sure that we progress our patients along we refer to it as the ladder of loyalty. Getting patients in for an initial assessment is the goal of marketing. And then what happens after that initial assessment is about making sure that clients are optimized towards their goal, and being strategic with your video and other content at the key elements of that client journey make a massive difference. We've just implemented with some of our clients videos at session number 5, because we know that often patients will drop off at session number 6 or 7. And so a video that speaks to the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts that a patient goes through at session number 5 has an incredible effect on their retention through to session number 8, 9, 10. So that the retention value increases, but more importantly, clients get their outcomes because they stick around for longer. That's really helpful. Let's shift gears and click into distribution. There's YouTube and there's Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all these video platforms. what works, what doesn't, what type of content works on different platforms. Help us, please.
Sure. Yeah. Look, being strategic works. So
Right.
coming back to those 7 elements from before, if you've identified what the goal for your particular video is and who your audience is, you know a couple of key bits of information. You know, if you know your audience, you know where they play, where they hang out. So I
Sure.
talk about the analogy of fish where the fish are. So particularly for that brand awareness goal, for that, top of funnel, those people who haven't heard about you before but are feeling that pain that you can help them with. That from a distribution point of view, you need to identify where they hang out and then produce video content that's native to that particular platform. And when I say native to that platform, I mean thinking about the language for video on that particular platform. For example, if you know that your ideal target audience, your ideal client, that they're big Instagram users, then you want to be thinking about how you can create video that is specific for the Instagram platform. Right. With a message that is obviously, if it's at that awareness goal, that is around storytelling and an emotion kind of a message, right? To hook people into that emotional connection that they want to make. So Instagram, for example, it's going to need to be less than 60 seconds long and probably in a square format ratio and highly visual. So we can get specific into the platforms, but if you understand who your audience is and what the goal for that video is, then you understand which platform you need to be using. To give you an example of aligning the distribution mechanism to that goal, if you want to be creating awareness video, the goal is to get the most eyeballs on your video, right? To create brand impressions. So they're seeing you and they're feeling that emotion through your content. And then ideally they go further down the funnel with you. But the goal is to get the most eyeballs ultimately. So what we want to do is to use platforms like YouTube and Facebook because they, in most cases, have the highest reach and engagement. So YouTube being the second largest search engine owned by Google, you want to be thinking about how you can create content that is, crafted around potential search terms because, like you said, what they're searching for in Google, you could provide answers to and then bring them into your funnel in that way.
Sure. Love it.
But then on the other end of the journey, when you get down to the conversion end, like those examples in a clinic space of, walking them through your actual processes of treatment and things like that, that's not the kind of video that you want as a public video on YouTube or to stick it on your social media platforms like Facebook. Where you want that video to live is within your website. Not necessarily on the front page of your website either, but somewhere further down where people are only going to see it when they're at that ready to buy kind of moment in their
It's almost
journey.
like a hidden video for the right time.
Yeah, so depending on how you implement it, it may actually be a hidden video where they have to have made an inquiry or had some initial touch point with your business first, and then you send them this video to help convert or get them across the line. So maybe they've inquired and they've explained what pain they're currently dealing with, and you could send them a video specific to their needs. But the goal of that video is to actually convert them to get them into that, to get them into the clinic. So you can be quite targeted here, particularly if it's not just if you're not trying to create a blanket conversion video that sits on your website next to the book an appointment button. But the important thing from a distribution point of view with your conversion focused videos, there needs to be limited barriers to making that conversion. So it needs to be a video right next to our book now or call us or whatever the conversion action is. You don't want them to see a video that works at converting and then they have to go and figure out how to convert. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So distribution when it's strategic can make more sense. Yeah, I don't know if that fully answers your question about which platforms to use and when.
Yeah, no, it does. And, if I was to summarize that, you're saying those wide-reaching social platforms are great for awareness and consideration type content, but the conversion or the nurturing retention videos are better in a more, hidden might not be the right word, but more strategically placed, controlled platform, like embedded into an email or a hidden URL that people access at the right time. For example, for listeners, in some of the clinics that we work with, they have a video, an appointment confirmation video embedded on their website that is only visible after someone has made an appointment. And that type of content can speak to the specific emotions that people have right after they've booked an appointment, or what is known as made a buying decision. So that type of video addresses buyer's remorse and any of those feelings of, have I made the right decision? It's such a great reinforcement video that you would never be able to see until you've made an appointment. And that distribution platform is very different to what happens on YouTube or a Facebook Live, for instance. While we're still on distribution channels and social medias, Ben, let's get a little bit more tactical. What types of videos work on Facebook? Do Facebook Lives work? Talking head stuff? Or does the highly produced stuff work? What should we be thinking about when producing video for Facebook?
So when you think about Facebook, you need to first really understand what type of platform it is. It is a social network, and people are engaging on Facebook to engage with people in their social sphere of influence. So their friends, their family, brands that they feel a social connection with. And when we recognize that, and we recognize why people are opening up their Facebook newsfeed in the first place, they're usually going to it not with the intention of necessarily learning something or finding out an answer to a particular problem. That's when they turn to YouTube search or
Correct.
Google search, for example. So that can inform our YouTube strategy. But when we're talking about Facebook, it's about people to people. It's about social connection. It's about human interaction. So when we recognize that, when we're trying to bring our branded messaging into a Facebook feed, we need to recognize that we're talking to people. So you need to be, that's why human-centered videos work really well on Facebook. So
can you explain human-centered for us?
So human-centered means that there is a human face or a human person right there in the center of the video. So talking head type videos do work quite well when they're on Facebook, when there is a clearly defined benefit to watching within the opening seconds. So we talk about having about 3 seconds in a Facebook news feed to actually engage someone to watch the video for longer. So we need to also be aware that people are watching in the Facebook feed particularly without the sound on initially. So we need to engage visually. So a human face in those opening frames, those opening seconds, but preferably a human face that's smiling and looking engaged and looks like they have something interesting to say. That's what can hook them in. But we can also use, text on the screen and things like that in those opening seconds or captions to hook people with that first sentence. Because if someone scrolling their feed doesn't realize in the first 3 seconds that this is something worth watching, then they're past it. They've gone. They've moved on. Okay. So we want to actually focus on those opening seconds. What benefit are you going to get from watching this? And if you can do that in a human-centered way, then that works really well on Facebook. In the same way that Facebook Live is a very powerful strategy to use on Facebook, and not least of which Facebook's algorithms strongly favor Facebook Live. So if you can use Facebook Live video strategically and get good engagement and valuable interaction during that live broadcast, and what I mean by valuable interaction is lots of stuff happening in the comments. You want to be using your content and the content of your live in a way that encourages people to ask questions or interact or engage in those comments, because that will create a lot of, I guess, algorithm juice behind the video, so that when it is then a replay video on Facebook, Facebook will boost it more highly in the organic results, the organic feed. So Facebook Live is fantastic if you go into it strategically with a purpose that's linked to providing value, because that's what we're aiming to do here. If you're thinking about using more produced videos on Facebook, then you absolutely need to be considering that sound off audience. So Facebook is predominantly a sound off video platform, and people engage with, there's actually statistics that prove that a lot of people often watch an entire video with the sound off if they can get the get the value from that. So even if they're getting value, so they're enjoying the video, they will often still watch it all with the sound off if there's captions and things like that. So you need to be aware of that and create content around that as well. So using
super
either
useful.
the Facebook captions tool or actually creating a video with text embedded into the video as the captions. So there are a few different ways to do that.
Do we know if baked-in captions perform better than the external captions file?
I don't know any specific stats for that. However, my gut feeling is that baked-in captions will work better because many people actually don't have the captions on by default, or if the caption file, so the SRT file or the subrip caption file that you can upload to Facebook, if that's not uploaded in the right way, or if the language default is not right, then often the captions won't show.
Sure.
Even if there is a caption file there. So because the caption file sometimes won't show, or for example, if someone has their language default set to French, for example, because they may be in Australia, but they may be a French speaker, they can still absolutely read English perfectly well. But because their default of their Facebook feed is French and you haven't got a French caption file there, they're not going to see the captions. But if they had burnt in captions, they would be able to follow along. Yeah.
Good point. Great learning. And that's something that can be done really well in a produced environment is those burnt in captions or captions that are embedded in the video can really add a lot of branding and awareness to the video for sure. Ben, can you speak about the difference between iPhone personalized video, like video that we do personally, individually, and produced video? Are there pros and cons to either of those?
Look, for anyone, as long as there's a good strategy behind your video, I'd say doing any video is better than doing no video, right?
Sure.
As long as there's a strategy, I'll say that again. But ultimately it's always going to come down to budget, right? But when it comes to whether or not you do it yourself or you hire a professional, I want you to kind of picture that funnel shape that we had before. So, if you think about an inverted triangle, like a funnel, which is wider at the top and pointier at the bottom. And we know that the awareness stage of our content or our goal for our videos is at the top of the funnel. So we're going to catch more people with those awareness type videos than we are at the bottom end, the pointy end of the funnel, which are the people about to buy from us. There's going to be, because of this customer funnel, there's going to be less people at that stage who are going to actually about to become our customer. And then I want you to flip that inverted pyramid around, that funnel shape. So now you've got a standard triangle with a pointy end at the top. Sit that beside your upside down funnel. And that's the way I want you to be thinking about the amount of content that you want to create. Okay. So now you've got a pointier end or less content at the awareness phase, and then a wider end at the bottom, which is where the conversion end is, right? So that's basically the way to picture how much content you should be creating. So for good awareness, good storytelling content, you don't need a lot of pieces of video content at that end for that purpose. But down at the conversion end, you're going to want a lot of little pieces of video content that are very targeted to specific needs of your customers to convert, to get them across the line. You used some good examples before. So when you understand that inverted pyramid kind of structure, we know that the videos down the bottom of the funnel at the conversion end, it just doesn't make sense in most cases to have those highly produced, spending a lot of money using a professional video production company. They're the kind of videos that really need to be shot in the moment on your iPhone in your clinic at no cost or low cost, because you want to produce a lot of them and they need to be highly personal. Whereas when you get to the top of the funnel, which is where you don't need as much content. So when you get to that awareness phase where you're talking about, storytelling, branding pieces of video, that's where I do recommend that you do find some budget and you do go to a professional video production company to actually tell that story, just in the same way that you wouldn't sign write your own car or print your own, print your own posters for your clinic space. You wouldn't, you ideally don't want to be creating those core brand pieces of storytelling content with your iPhone unless you're super confident in how to do that.
That's really good advice. That's really useful. And that top of funnel awareness storytelling type of video can be evergreen. It reaches, often thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people So it makes sense to invest in something of quality that can last for a long time and reach a lot of people, right?
It should last you. I mean, just like a web design, for example, that you maybe want to redo every couple of years because your brand's moved on or it's starting to look a bit dated. Same with your brand awareness video content. It should be done well. It should be invested in, and it should last you for a couple of years.
That's great. That's really useful. Mate, I think those 7 pillars and thinking about strategically approaching video will be incredibly useful, as well as some of the practical, tactical stuff we've covered, because that's what we're all about at Clinic Mastery. Video is one of those areas where amateurs can really stuff it up. But amateurs can get it right with the right training and coaching and advice. So, Ben, if the amateurs out there want to learn a little bit more, want to dip their toe in and want to do more than just the selfie video, have you got something for us, something we can learn, some sort of program or course that we can dip our toes in the water?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've said countless times in this interview here, Jack, it's all about getting clear on what your strategy is behind your video, because from there you understand what videos to make and why, and you understand how to use them online in order to get the results you need for your business. And that's where I would like to help your listeners, because I've got a 3-part video series, which is absolutely free, which will step you through developing the foundations of a video strategy for your business. And basically from that, you'll really end with the roadmap to what videos you need to start with and why, and how to actually use them to get results for your business. So I call that my foundations course. And it's, like I said, it's free. So just head on over to engagevideomarketing.com/foundations and you can sign up there and get into it.
Brilliant. We'll make sure we link up to that all around this video, but it's fairly easy. This podcast, video on the brain. It's fairly easy to remember. engagevideomarketing.com/foundations. Make sure you jump on that. It's absolutely free, incredibly useful. You'll get some massive value out of that. Ben, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We've really enjoyed having you on. That's been fantastic.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it.
And listeners, like we said, for any of those show notes or links, you can head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast. All of the links will be there. You can get all the insights, all our upcoming events, our Business Academy, Grow My Clinic membership, Admin Mastery, which has just been launched. There is a myriad of resources there. Make sure you check it out and let us know what you think on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your earbuds with us. We'll be with you for another episode again really soon.
This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.